All right, welcome everybody. My name is Connor Singheisen. I am the Director of Education for the Corn Belt Umpires Association, I believe. It's my official title. And today we're here to talk about what is a balk. We're going to wait just a couple minutes until it gives people a little bit of extra time to jump in. So hang out for a couple minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. We'll go over some expectations of the Zoom clinic, and then we'll go from there.
Hey Larry, how are you?
I am good.
Fantastic. How's your winter going?
Just like today, very, very cold. Don't want to be outside.
Yeah.
I guess there's going to be a game on the ice today. They're gonna have they don't need any umpires though.
That's good.
And anybody that's out there on that ice today is an idiot.
It is a balmy 32 degrees down in Vermilion, South Dakota right now, but it is blowing about probably 30 right now too.
So it's we had below zero temperatures waking up, but it's up to about 4 or 5 degrees when we just came back from the grocery store.
Gotcha. Okay.
Broom ball wouldn't be bad.
All right.
No, it wouldn't. Not today.
Well, we are going to go ahead and get started. So to start, rules and expectations. Leave your microphone on mute until you're ready to ask a question. That way we don't have any feedback or background noise interrupting the learning experience. If you have comments or additions, please put those in the chat and we'll address those as necessary. But if you have questions, feel free to pop your microphone on and ask that question. We'll get an answer for you. There's contact info down at the bottom for both Jake and myself. If you have questions, rules, mechanics, anything like that, baseball related, feel free to shoot us, either one of us, an email. So the purpose of these clinics is to prepare us all for baseball season, which starts up, depending on where you're at, potentially could be starting today. Most of us are located in the upper Midwest and are still a few weeks, mostly 5 to 6 away from the start of baseball season. But we're here to learn. Jacob and I are both not experts in anything baseball related. We are educated, and our goal is to use these to educate ourselves and prepare ourselves for umpiring as well as all of you. And hopefully everybody learns a little bit out of this. We're not immune to mistakes. So if we misphrase something or you have a question or something doesn't make sense, feel free to go ahead and jump on and ask us to clarify that. That's what we're here to do. So hopefully we all get something out of these and are in the process of getting ready for baseball season.
Connor, the one thing I'll add, sorry to interrupt you, is I know everybody got a notification that this is being recorded. Please keep that in mind. We do try to publish these to the Corn Belt Umpires Facebook page as often as possible. And if you don't want it set on YouTube, Please don't say it here.
Thanks, Jake. So we plan to do these at least every other week leading up to baseball season. It might be every week depending on the number of topics that we have to discuss. Eventually we'll get into where every other week is a kind of a bring your plays and we'll talk about them so we can kind of all learn from each other. But if there are any other topics you want to hear about, please feel free to email Jake or myself and we'll get that added and we'll create something for you. We already have one question in, and it is Balk the most controversial rule you've had to judge? Or what's the most difficult rule for you? I don't think balks. I think balks are probably the most controversial rule, but it's not difficult for me at least, because I take the mindset of make the balk matter. It has to make a difference in the play of the game. If we're out there nitpicking every little thing, especially at the college level and below, you probably would have 4 or 5 an inning at least. In my opinion, balks have to make a difference in the game in order for them to be called. Obviously, like if the kid falls over, if he's engaged in the rubber and he falls over, yeah, that's kind of easy, and nobody's going to argue that. Or when they drop the ball and they're clearly engaged with the rubber, those are the easy ones, and those are the ones that are in front of grandma and everybody, right? So thank God and country on that. But balks have to make a difference in the game. We can't just go out there looking to call something, because if we do, we'll be there all day. So that's my opinion on that. So how do we define a balk? Rule references are included here if you want to look those up yourself. But a balk is an illegal act by the pitcher with runners on, entitling all runners to advance one base. So the rule references are there for both NFHS, NCAA, and OBR. Next slide here. In NFHS, so anytime we're using Federation rule sets, a balk is a dead ball. And that is a major difference from everything else. NCAA, OBR, Legion, Keener, whatever else you want to call it, whatever rule set they have, it's all live. USSSA, Hap Dumont, Cal Ripken might be dead. Babe Ruth plays high school, so it's dead there. But the key thing to think about with balks is you can always come back and kill the play and then award bases. You can never make a dead ball live if you screwed up and called it dead. Does that make sense? So if you're not sure, just point it out, and we'll go through the actual application of how to call one. But call the balk. Let players decide what they're going to do. And then you can come back and say, time, that's a dead ball. We're going to award bases, and we're going to nullify whatever happened during the course of play. We can always fix a live ball and make it a dead ball, but we can't unmake a dead ball. So what constitutes a balk? A pitcher has to be engaged with the rubber, engaged or astride the rubber. And a stride only comes in play in one situation, and we'll talk about that later. But the pitcher has to be engaged with the rubber and makes a natural motion associated with his pitch and fails to make a delivery. The pitcher, while touching the pitcher's plate, feints to throw to first or third and fails to complete the throw. In high school baseball, played by Federation rules, you can fake the third. You cannot in OBR or any other rules but high school. If you fail to gain ground or step directly towards the base before throwing to that base, that is a balk. Or if they feint to an unoccupied base or throw to an unoccupied base, except for the purpose of making a play on a run. So that's one that gets talked about. That last one gets talked about a lot. There's a lot of plays in Facebook forums about a runner trying to pick off a stealing runner to the base of the runner's attempting to steal to. That is for the purpose of retiring a runner. So that would be legal. And we've got some videos that we'll show here later. Other rule sets are located in the top right corner. The rule references. So why do we call a balk? A balk, like we call a balk to adjudicate or to rule on an infraction by the pitcher. Say the pitcher did something illegal that created an advantage for the pitcher. And we'll talk about some of those, like a quick pitch, making a motion associated with the pitch and then picking off, which is something that a lot of lefties do, and they're really good at hiding or coming really close to without violating. But don't call a balk just to prove how smart you are and how well you know the rules. With the exception of a pitcher dropping the ball or a pitcher like getting halfway down the mound and not throwing the pitch or falling over. Those are the only three balks that don't get argued. Because everybody knows you can't do that, and it's blatantly obvious. Right? So that there are no doubts in anybody's mind that that's illegal. So if you call one of those, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of argument. The other things, when we make a throw, that's when we get arguments. So call a balk because it makes a difference in the game. So a few philosophies on calling balks. Number one, don't. If you can't explain what the pitcher did in 3 words or less, that's not a balk. Okay? It's not that simple. It's not that easy. Call it only when you run out of reasons not to. Excuse me. So that pitcher that maybe rolls through a stop, but still delivers a pitch, the runner doesn't do anything, doesn't take off, everybody's ready to go. What advantage are we gaining? As a runner, we're still getting a quality secondary lead. The batter's in the box ready to hit. There's nothing there for that. So 3 words or less. No stop. No step. What else, Jake?
That's
Failed to throw.
Yeah, from the pro, I wouldn't go that far. I think the next set of philosophy and that's kind of more closely to what I subscribe to as far as a theory or philosophy of calling balks. I'd love to get Larry's 2 cents on this, but I like the idea of the 3-word rule because it makes it simple. You're trying to communicate an infraction, but it's an infraction that causes a lot of situations. One thing that people think is, if I understand the block rule really well, it's gonna reduce the number of situations that I have. That is completely false. You're gonna actually probably have more situations out of calling a balk, even when you're absolutely correct. The best umpires are going to know when it's appropriate to call the balk in addition to knowing the balk. I've come across a lot of situations where I'm working with umpires who are incredibly smart when it comes to the balk rule. They know it like the back of their hand. But then it comes into that game management question of when is it appropriate to call a balk? And so that kind of moves nicely to the next point that we have on the screen where, we have 3 requirements. And like I said before, this is really what I use. The first thing I want to see is that the balk infraction is obvious. If we're going to talk about a pitcher failing to come to a complete discernible stop, at lower levels, they made absolutely 0 attempt to get stopped. Or it's something that is so obvious that everybody and their grandma, knows that it was a balk. The second one is arguably, I think, probably the one that could be debated the most, but it made the runner or the batter do something unexpected. And so I have two really good examples, one for the runner and one for the batter. The example that I'll use for the runner is a left-handed pitcher, and we have a runner on first in this situation. And it can be either one of two balks, either where the pitcher makes a motion to go home and deliver the pitch, and instead they step through and make a pickoff attempt, and we have a rundown. Or we have a situation where we have a left-handed pitcher where their foot breaks the back edge of the pitcher's plate, and then they throw over to first base. You know that by rule, if the pitcher's free foot breaks the back edge of the plate, they are committed to either going to second base or going home. And so a lot of times a runner will cue off that, and as soon as that foot breaks the back edge of the rubber, they're going to go to second base. And then the pitcher will make an attempt to pick them off at first base. And so that's doing something unexpected. The best case that I can think of with a batter would simply be the situation where the pitcher fails to come to a complete and discernible stop, and where the batter's not completely set in the box and it catches them off guard. One thing that I do pre-pitch is as soon as the pitcher engages the pitcher's plate, I get my feet set, and then as soon as the pitcher comes set, hands the other feet together, then I go hands on knees, and then I get into my stance, or not stance. I get into my position to call the pitch once they begin their movement to deliver the pitch. And so I've also found that if the batter gets caught off guard, or when the batter's caught off guard, the last one is another interesting one that I think could be discussed, which is that the balk is appropriate for the age, the temperature of the game, and just the situation in general. The example that I believe we have on the screen is that you're in a 9-0 game. You got bases loaded. It's bottom of the fifth, and the pitcher may or may not begin their motion to come set, stop, and then start their motion again. Don't be that umpire that walks in that mercy rule run. That in my mind, and anybody's free to disagree with me. In my mind, that's not an appropriate time to call a balk like that. Obviously, if it was a situation where the pitcher's clearly engaged to the pitcher's plate and they drop the ball or they fall off the mound, then obviously, we got to call that. But don't go picking boogers. That's a phrase you might hear get said a lot during this discussion, is making sure we're not picking boogers. And that just means make sure the balk's there. Mr. Singheisen?
All right. So, if you think your advanced knowledge of the balk rule will allow you to call more balks and get less arguments, you are wrong. No matter how good you are or how technical you get with the rule for balks, you're always going to have arguments. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes when you call them. Everybody will argue that they did balk, and the defense is going to say there's no way that's a balk every time, no matter what happens, with the exception of falling over, dropping the ball, or starting downhill and then stopping. So make them matter.
Hey, Connor?
Yeah.
To that point too, do you want to briefly touch on the standards for removal as it pertains to arguing a balk, and kind of what that goes into? Because, as we just pointed out, more situations are likely to come from calling a balk. And so I think knowing what the situation is would be very beneficial in this case.
Yeah. So if you call a balk, and the coach comes out to argue, they leave their position to argue. They're up for ejection immediately. That's grounds for immediate ejection, leaving your position to argue a balk. Now, if they come out and say, "What did he do?" and you give an explanation, and they disagree with you, that's not really arguing. If I call a balk and says no stop, and he comes out, or me when I call a balk, and we'll go through this, but I tell you what you did right after I call it, because that eliminates coaches coming out to ask questions. Well, theoretically, okay, it doesn't always work that way, but I've at least already explained what I have. When that coach comes out and says, "What did you do wrong?" and you say, "He committed to pitch." Well, how? Give them an explanation. Don't be afraid to have a conversation about it. Now, once they've gotten their explanation, and then they continue to tell you they disagree with you, that's a good time to say, "Hey, you've gotten an explanation. You can't argue this. If you'd like to go tell your pitcher what he did wrong, I'll go with you, but we can't argue this." So once you get that explanation out, and you can have some dialogue, right? We can disagree and have dialogue on it. But once they show you that they're not accepting that explanation, that's when it's time to move on. I'm going to say, "Coach, you've got an explanation. We can't argue this. I'm going back to home plate, and I'm going to leave." And then if he continues to follow, then that's when we have a situation. But make sure we're having conversations and we're explaining what happened.
Connor, I saw you had a question in the chat, and while you're taking a peek at that, I want to add something else as far as balk philosophy goes that just dawned on me. At the lower levels, and I know Little League and some tournament rule sets we may be working have a requirement that you give a warning for a balk for each pitcher. Okay. Well, if in my mind, if something's close, I want to get out in front of that and prevent it and do some preventative umpiring. Well, what that might look like is it depends on my position on the field. If I'm the plate umpire, I might try to catch the pitcher as they're coming off the field. If I'm the base umpire, assuming many people in here have worked with me or Connor, because I've seen Connor do this as well. If we're in the infield working area, we might just bend over, put our head facing the ground, and just say, "Hey, make sure you're coming set," or whatever. We're trying to preventative officiate something where it's not really a balk, but it could develop very quickly into a balk, and it's a time where we should really be doing some preventative umpiring.
Again, call it when you run out of reasons not to. When it comes to umpiring and balks, you are Captain Ahab, and that balk better be Moby Dick. All right. So, balks part 2. What constitutes a balk? A pitcher makes an illegal pitch. Right? So think quick pitch. Think a spitball. I'm trying to think of anything else. Illegal pitch. A pitcher without having the ball stands on or astride the pitcher's plate, or while off the plate, feints a pitch. So on or astride without having the ball is the NCAA and OBR rule. If you are on or astride the rubber and do not have a ball, it does not matter what happens. That is, and the ball's in play, that's a balk once you realize it. For NFHS, it's the dirt circle. Or the pitcher, while touching his plate, accidentally or intentionally has the ball slip or fall out of his hand or glove. In NFHS and NCAA, that is a balk, no matter what happens to the baseball once it hits the ground. In OBR, if that ball slips out of their hand and crosses the foul line, what do we have? Anybody tell me?
Ball.
Ball.
It's a ball. In
As
NCAA,
Brett-
go ahead, Jake.
I was just saying, as Brett Rice said at a Wendell Stet camp that I was at a couple years ago, if a pitcher under OBR rules drops the ball and crosses the foul line, that is a pitch that is low and outside. That's it.
And I screwed this up on the NCAA test thinking OBR because in NCAA and in FHS, it is a balk no matter what happens to the baseball, no matter where it ends up. The pitcher delivers the pitch from the set position without coming to a stop. So if I come to a stop, right, if I come and I go here and I roll through and pitch, that is, by rule, a balk. I think Jake has in here 2 stops because we have those pitchers that like to mess around with their feet, or their feet and hands come set at different points in time. I believe that's what he's going for there. He'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep. So what I'm going for there, and I actually had a frequent participant reach out about this because there was a block that Adam Hammery called this past season as a third base umpire, and I will distribute the video in the Close Call Sports. Lindsay Ember did a video on this, and in this, I forget who the pitcher was, but this pitcher used what is now commonly referred to as the rocker step. And so I'll try to describe it. And like I said, I'll be more than happy to send it out to everybody, or I think Connor, I might have sent it to you over Messenger at one point in time, and you might be able to stick that in the chat. But the pitcher, for all intents and purposes, by definition, was in the set position. After they were set, they took a step back with their free foot and then proceeded to basically do a half wind up. In NFHS and NCAA, this is illegal because it violates the definition of the set position. In
South Dakota,
OBR, say that again?
South Dakota allows the hybrid.
Yes. Thank you for catching me on that. South Dakota does allow the hybrid, and this is one of the hybrid pitching stances that is frequently used. But under OBR, so I believe Legion would be the only rule set that this would really apply to, as well as I think amateur, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. If a pitcher wishes to use the so-called rocker step, they must declare to the umpire that they are using the wind-up position. And I don't have my notes in front of me. I have in the car right now because I have an appointment that I'm heading to. And but I believe, and Connor, please correct me if I'm wrong, or anybody else, that the declaration must be made prior to the first pitch of the at bat, and then they're pitching in that position unless something happens on the field for the entire at bat.
Correct.
Yes. So like I said, I'll try to find that video and send that out to everybody just so we're all on the same page as far as what we're talking about. But it's a hybrid stance under NFHS or NCAA rules. And with the limited exception of it being allowed in South Dakota as a high school modification, you're only allowed to do it in OBR, which would be American Legion, and amateur baseball. With you declaring.
So, what's the penalty for a balk? All runners must advance one base without liability to be put out. So, if we have a runner on third and we have a balk, that runner goes home. Okay. In NFHS, we're going to kill it. So, it's going to be, that's a balk, time, point to the runner and say, you, second base, you, third base, you, home, or whatever, however we award those bases, right? In NCAA and OBR, it's very simple. That's a balk. And then see what happens. If the pitcher stops his delivery, time, award bases. Pitcher throws the pitch, and the catcher catches it, time, that's a balk, you there, right? The pitcher delivers the pitch. Let me back up. The pitcher balks and picks off. Once the first baseman catches it, time, or whatever baseman, right? Time, that's a balk, and then advance the runners. If the pitcher picks off and that ball is airmailed into right field, you let that play until the ball is picked up. If that pickup happens and we have a swipe tag, we have a catch and tag, it's still time, that's a balk, you go to second base. If the pitcher throws the ball to home plate, so delivers the pitch, and that ball is put in play, we let that play finish. In that situation, if the batter advances to first base safely and the runner advances one base safely, we ignore everything that happened. We ignore the balk. Let's say the batter pops up and it's an out, it's caught, time, advance the runner, put the batter back at the plate. There are no choices when it comes to balks. Everybody has to advance one base, especially when it's live. The runner has to advance one base without liability to be put out. If I'm on first and they balk and Jake puts the ball in play and I get thrown out a third, did I advance to second without liability to be put out? Did I safely advance to second base? The answer is yes. So if I get thrown out a third, then I'm out. Are there any questions on that? Try to make it as simple as possible.
I'm going to add one thing here, and this is kind of what I do, especially working multiple different rule sets multiple times a week, because I could work a 16U Class A game, so we're using high school rules, and then the next night I'm working a Legion game. So with the difference, what I do is I am slow and deliberate. I'll say that's a balk, and then I'm going to take a second to make sure that I am in the right rule set. Because, and Connor, you alluded to this earlier, you can make a live ball dead, but you cannot make a dead ball live. And the worst possible feeling I think you could have as an umpire when you have a balk that you've called is to prematurely call time. And so I am more slow on my calling of time because I want to make sure that I get the enforcement portion of the balk, or not the enforcement portion, but the ball status provision of the balk will correct.
Always, if you're not sure, always err on keeping it live. You can always come back and fix it if you have to.
Absolutely.
All right. So, mechanics of calling a balk. Who has what? Talk about it in pregame. The plate umpire typically has legs, feet, and shoulders, and the base umpire is going to have hands and shoulders. So that turning of the shoulder, right? It doesn't need to be this. It needs to be this, right? If I do this, that's a balk. If I do this, shoulder turn with his head. He didn't turn his shoulder by itself. And I use that explanation, right? Make it massive. Does it change with the right-handed pitcher versus the left-handed pitcher? That's something to pregame. Talk about it, right? If you see a balk, call a balk. You have your priorities, right? You have your primary coverage area. But if it's a massive oversight and we miss it as the other umpire who has that responsibility, but it's so big you can't ignore it, come in late with it. Like, if the pitch is halfway to the plate and that's a balk, that's perfectly fine because it's massive and makes a difference. The point is we got the balk, right? That's the most important thing. If that batter decides not to swing because you yelled that's a balk, we're okay with that because guess what happens? That runner advances the base regardless. Okay. If you can, and this is something that I struggle with, but echo it. If you're on the bases and the plate guy calls a balk, the base guy needs to echo it. Yeah.
Or you can finish, and I want to jump in on the echo part.
If I'm the plate guy and the base umpire calls a balk, I'm not echoing that. I'm not good enough to distract myself from adjudicating that pitch to echo that balk call. Because if I'm thinking about I need to echo this pitch or echo this balk call as a plate umpire, then I am going to most likely miss something. Catcher's interference. The ball going off the batter's shin, a hit by pitch, something like that. I'm going to miss it because I'm so focused on echoing that call as a plate umpire. I don't do it. And I tell my partners, I'm not going to echo that if I'm on the dish.
All right. So there is this umpire who hails from snowy Duluth, Minnesota. I think he spent something like 27 years in Major League Baseball, and he earned the nickname Balk and Bob. If you haven't figured out who I'm referring to Bob Davidson, who's a longtime Major League umpire, and he was known for calling balks. I think there was one stretch where he had the Atlanta Braves, and I think 7 straight games he had a balk. And he was doing an interview for Close Call Sports. They pulled up this video clip, and I believe it was the Atlanta Braves. And the broadcaster goes, and we have another balk. Is that Bob Davidson? Well, Bob caught a lot of flack for calling balks, but in reality, most of the time he was echoing the balks. And so, a good crew that can echo balks can help sell a balk too. If we think it's big enough, but it might not be that apparent, having the crew echo a balk can make it look like it was a balk, or not was a balk, but make it look like it was a stronger balk call than the actual infraction was perceived by coaches or spectators.
If you echo a balk, the coach is most likely to come out to you and ask you what happened. Because if you echo a balk, you're the one they hear. Seems like all the time. Direct them to the calling umpire. Jake had it. I echoed it so everybody knew what he had. He'll be able to answer that question for you and send them to Jake. That's not throwing Jake under the bus. That's telling you if you have a question, go to the calling umpire, who in this situation is Jake. All right, a couple of videos.
4 days. He's had really good swings.
Swing and a miss. Took something off that. Beltran way out in front.
When we hear it, that's a balk.
Now, I guess they called the
Right?
4 days. He's had really good swings.
So we pick that up. Watch his feet. Sorry, I'm trying to move the video bar so I can see it too. But watch him come set. We got a runner on first. Okay.
He's had really good swings.
He never stops his front leg. And I wish I could slow-mo it. But if you watch this,
He's had really good swings.
his hands come set, but his legs never do. And that's where that two stops comes into play. You have the pitchers that want to come set up top, and they fiddle around with their foot, for lack of a better phrase, in a public forum. But they tap their foot. They're moving it all over the place. That foot's got to stop before they deliver. Because until that happens, they're not set. Now, we don't see the outside look at this play, but my guess is the runner was taking off for second base, and that's why we call that balk. Because we don't take off until he commits to the pitch as the runner. Well, pop times in the pros are, what, 1.6? 1.7, 1.8, somewhere around there, right? Maybe less. That's a pretty quick pop time and a pretty big advantage to the defense if we don't stop.
swing and a miss. Took something off that.
Hang on a second. Up to, let's see.
Beltran way out in front.
Here's another no-stop balk.
Who earlier in this series became the first player with 100 runs scored in the postseason.
This one is called by the plate umpire. Catcher receives the pitch. Time. That's a balk and signals a runner to second base. However, if you are the plate umpire in this situation, you need to be a little bit more firm and not mechanical, but very, I don't know how I want to say this. Your advancing the runner signal needs to be better because you're not a major league umpire. And that's the easiest way I can say this. Be smoother. Make it look better.
Who earlier in this series became the first player.
And we don't really see what happens on this play. Runner on first. I don't see his feet on this. Based on what I see from the waist up, I don't have a balk. I don't have a no-stop balk. To me, that's enough. Now, at the first level where they can actually steal, this may not be enough. And that goes back to the appropriate for level of play, age and level of play.
Who earlier in this series became the first player.
I mean, it's quick, but I've got to stop there, and I'm not balking that. Does anybody disagree with that?
I disagree.
You disagree? Let's talk about it, Larry.
I think it's definitely a no stop. His hands came together and that's all it did. There's no stop. He never completely stopped.
Are you calling this every time it happens or only if the runner decides to take off the second?
I'm going to call it with runners and wherever they are, even if they're not going bases loaded, I'd call that.
Okay.
This guy is if there is a runner that wants to get an advantage, he can't. That's what my it is. Who gained an advantage? The pitcher's gaining an advantage. Not only that, he's almost quick pitching.
Okay.
Because the batter is expecting a stop too. So in high school, they actually, with no runners on base, it's an illegal pitch if they don't stop, which is a dumb rule for me. But that's what it is in high school baseball.
Okay.
Hey, Larry, because I feel like I was trying to allude to it, but if what you're saying is what I think I'm trying to say,
You're breaking up, I can't hear you.
Okay, all right. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but you break up.
Okay. All right. I'll ask you here in a minute, okay?
Okay.
See if I can get to a little bit better reception.
We'll come back to it then. We need to. All right. See if we can advance this to the next slide. All right, here's a start stop. Maybe. Yeah, here we go. All right, I like these because these you get a lot of arguments on, and they're pretty obvious most of the time.
Set up a one-pitch plan. Ooh, that was almost a balk.
And it is a balk. So here comes Crawford.
Set up a one-pitch plan.
Watch. He starts to rock back like he's going to come set. He starts to come set, right? And then he changes his mind and stops and goes back forward. Like he got the sign. He's like, wait, what a minute. What pitch was that? And leans back forward. Once he starts the motion to come set, he has to either come set or pick off or step off. Clearly he doesn't in this one. This one's pretty obvious. I think everybody knows this is one of those. The other time you see it is where our hands start together and we don't, right? We can come make a momentary adjustment and go back. We can come with our glove hand and ask the catcher to repeat, or come with our hand in the ball and come to repeat, right? That's different than coming set. Once our entire body moves or our hands go to come together for other than the purpose of a momentary adjustment, we've got to come set. I think that one's pretty cut and dry.
All right, let's try this again. Larry, can you hear me?
And it is a balk. So here comes Crawford.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So the way that I understood what you were referring to is that you were saying that the calling a block for a pitcher failing to come to a complete and discernible stop is as much, if not more, for the batter than the runner.
It's equal.
Okay.
Somebody's put at a disadvantage. Maybe the runner's not going, so he may not be put at a disadvantage. But the batter is always put at a disadvantage because he's expecting a stop. Because the guy did 10 stops in a row and now he doesn't.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, that's pretty close to what I was trying to get at earlier. Connor, you want to briefly just go over what a momentary adjustment is?
Yeah. So if I'm in the stretch part of the set position, right? And I can go into my glove and adjust the position of the ball momentarily without that being part of my coming set. Now, it's hard to demonstrate without being able to stand up in front of you all. But if I'm here, right, and I go, I'll come back, as opposed to here, that's not a momentary adjustment. That's coming set, right? So it really depends on, a lot of it's your judgment. Was that a motion to come set or was that a momentary adjustment? Which is why we always want to be slow and deliberate when calling a balk, because we want to process what happened. We're always going to be late on balks, and that's a good thing because we process, right? So if I decide, okay, I want the ball facing this way because the pitch is going to call, I come into my glove, I adjust it, I come back. But that's a movement of the arms, right? That's not a, oh, I stand up, bring the glove back here and do this. That's a, or, right? So it's one of those where you know it when you see it, and it's legal.
Connor, you want to touch on, or go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason.
All right, thanks, Larry. I was just saying, Connor, one thing I got to jump off here pretty quick, but on the left-handed pitchers, the 45 misconception, in my opinion, I had a young guy last year. I just wanted to put that out here for the group. The way I was taught to balk or not balk that left-handed pitcher and that borderline move to first is, where is he gaining ground? If that foot gains ground towards first base, then we're going to let that go. But if he gains ground towards the plate, then we got to balk that. Is that kind of your philosophy too, or what are your thoughts on that?
So by rule, yes.
Okay.
Where did he gain ground to? Everybody has a different mentality on how they judge this. Can I gain ground towards first, but my body is going to home plate?
Theoretically, yes.
I am a big, like, my big indicator is, where does your chest go? Because when you demonstrate that, and I'll do my best, I don't know, right? So I'm here, right? I go to step towards first, right? If I go here, did I gain ground towards home? Yes. Did I gain ground towards first? Maybe. But if you watch their torso will tell you where they're gaining ground towards. Because they're always going to step towards home and first at the same time if they're going to first, right?
Yes.
They're always going to come down a hill a little bit. But did their upper body, their torso, tell you they were going home? And that's how I judge that. Because then I know, as a batter, you know the pitcher's coming home when their torso goes home. And it's really easy to tell if you look, instead of looking at feet, look at their entire body and where it goes, in my opinion. That's how I umpire that play.
I agree with that. You see a lot of lefties fall toward first after they lose their balance after the throw. If you wait that long, you can see where their balance brings them. Sometimes on that play, they fall toward home, and now you know that that's what they've done. That's illegal. When they fall more toward first base at the end of the throw, then that's a legal play. Unless they went behind the rubber with their foot or body upper their leg.
To everybody's point, this is one of those blocks that we refer to as I refer to as a distance and direction block. I like the idea that Connor has said with the torso. I think you can't really use the legs in the 2 umpire system to determine what if we have a distance and direction issue. I think once you get into the 3 and 4 umpire systems, then that becomes a lot easier, because then you have, one can take some responsibility on that play. And so I really like the torso idea, and using that because, we don't have the good distance and direction indicator in most of the baseball that we're umpiring, because we're umpiring in the 2 umpire system. So.
That answer your question, Jason?
Yeah, I was just kind of that was great. I was kind of looking for the right way to kind of lead the young guy that I was working with there. Kind of, my explanation I knew wasn't very good, so I like the way the torso. That's a really easy to understand concept. So,
and it's a dead giveaway.
Connor, can I ask you a question quick?
Yeah.
So I find myself, and I think I'm doing it wrong, and you're going to clarify this for me, is when I got a really good left-hander with a good pickoff move to first, and I'm in that B position, I start cheating closer to watch that leg coming closer to home plate. And halfway through the season, I said, man, I'm going to take a ball right in the freaking forehead, and I don't think I'm getting much better look. So I started moving back to B. You got a guy, are you cheating at all, or are you staying where you're supposed to be?
I start tighter to the mound than tighter to the mound than most people. I don't know when the last time we worked together, Jay, but I think if you watch where I stand, I feel at least that I'm maybe 10 feet from the back edge of the mound. So I'm up tight in the two-person system way more than most people, thanks to my cat-like reflexes.
I don't think your distance is the key here. You can be close or far. The reason you're probably close is not because of the step. I don't think that helps you at all. I think the closer to the mound you are, it's a better look on the pickup. You got a better angle for your pickup. That's why you're closer. If I've got a good left-hander, I'm not going to stay in my normal B position. I'm going to move up. Now, if I've got a slow runner and I know they're not going to pick them up, I'll move back. I'm going to use situational awareness to decide where my position should be for it. So I think was it Jay that mentioned?
Yep.
You're the one that asked that question. I don't think you can again based on a good left-handed pitcher, I'd move up just because I get a better look because they're going to throw over there more. Or if there's a fast runner, I'm going to throw over, move up a little bit. If they're going to bunt, I might move up a little bit.
Jay, I typically will pregame this when I am umpiring in a 2 umpire system. As a plate umpire, I want to take it because then it's obvious and it's easy for me to tell as a plate umpire if they were going home or not because I don't have responsibility for that play at first base. I can stay with the pitcher as long as I want to. And I can see if they came towards me or if they went to first base. A lot easier as a plate umpire than I ever could as a base umpire.
Yeah, the plate umpire, that's his big responsibility. The base umpire shouldn't be worried about the step unless he's a 3-man position or 4 umpire.
All right. Next video. I think this one's pretty obvious. That one's pretty easy, yeah. He engages the rubber. Jump turn, doesn't throw. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's forward through this with the next slide. All right. Here's one that scores a game. Pretty easy one, right? We step to first base as a left-handed pitcher and fail to throw. All right. This is our lefty stepping directly to a base versus going home.
Measuring out his lead. He's going and he's picked off. The throw by LeMay.
So I cheated, so I gave you the answer to this. But watch his torso.
He let him get kind of a walking lead. Not really, nope.
Where does torso go on that play, on that pickoff? Towards home or towards first?
Towards first.
He's going and he's picked off. The throw by LeMay.
Towards first. Okay. But if you watch that, that tells you where they're going. And everybody's like, well, he still stepped towards first and he gained ground. Yeah. But if his torso comes home, what is he doing? It's an action associated with this pitch. And he's failing to deliver a pitch. And that's what I use for that guideline. Now, when he doesn't really step towards first, like he doesn't gain ground, that's easy, right? When he comes straight down here and then throws, that's pretty easy. But if your torso goes to home, you are committing yourself to pitch. And that he committed himself to home plate and failed to deliver a pitch. It's not 3 words or less, but that's pretty concise. Jake posted the rocker step in there. I'll let you all go check that out on your own time. I don't think. Are there any other plays on here, Jake? Front knee breaking first is pretty self-explanatory. We'll watch it real quick. Won't spend a lot of time on it.
Strong feel for the strike zone.
Yeah, especially 3-time batting champ.
So he pops his front knee and then kicks out to first.
He either moved his foot or
so we'll see if we got it again. A replay of it.
I'll add on this one. I think probably 2 or 3 years ago, there was an NCAA, might have even been a CBUA training video that came out. And I think one of the comments that whoever was doing the video had said was, if you're able to consistently get this in the 2-umpire system, you're a lot better of an umpire than most of us. Because as the plate umpire, I'm that front knee going. That's not something that I'm going to catch all that frequently. I want to catch that, but that's not something that realistically is going to get caught as often as we'd like to have it get caught.
It's hard to get in the 2-umpire system. That one was pretty obvious, I felt like. Maybe because I knew that was coming. It probably has a lot to do with it. But it's separate movements. If it's a separation of pop and then jump turn, that's the one we want to get. When it's almost simultaneous, it's impossible to pick up, and we're never going to call that.
That's a write-off. That's a write-off? Yeah. Do you even know what a write-off is? Yeah. It's when you buy something for your business and the government.
One feel for the strike zone.
All right. Throwing to a fielder. So this is the last. We'll end on this video because I know we're kind of crunched for time. We're throwing to a fielder from the pitcher's mound. So was this throw for the purpose of retiring a runner? Anybody say yes?
Only if he's moving before the pitcher throws it. If the throw is already on its way, and now he moves, it's a balk. I think that was probably legal. Actually, kind of threw a changeup.
Yeah. So in this, our first baseman knows this throw's coming and he's ready for it, and he's moving to make a play on the runner, to catch the ball and make a play on the runner. So this is planned. If that runner at second had taken off towards third, and we jump turn to third and throw it, and we think that that runner intended to steal, then we've got a legal play, even if the runner stops and goes back. That runner gives us any inkling of he's taking off to third base or second base, and we jump, turn, and throw to that base. The reason we're throwing is because he's trying to steal, and we're trying to pick him off. So that's a legal play. Do any of you have any questions on balks in general or anything in general?
I'll add on that throwing to a fielder. I've called that once in my career, and it was so obvious that when the fielder decided to actually throw, or excuse me, when the pitcher threw the ball, the first baseman was in the process of charging home plate because the batter had shown bunt. I didn't catch that one right away. My partner gave me some lighthearted grief after the game, which was frankly much deserved because I didn't grab the one right away, but he stepped up and he grabbed it. And as soon as he had mentioned something about it, I knew right away that I had missed that one. So that's one of those. The throwing to a fielder definitely is one of those blocks you want to take a lot more time with and pause, read, react on that specific block more than others.
Cool. Well, if there's no questions, that's all we've got for today. I believe we're planning on doing something next week, Jake. Is that right? Or we're going to skip a week?
No, I think we're going to have something next week. If anybody has a suggestion on something that they want to talk about, please do send them to Connor or myself. We want to give everyone that attends these stuff that is meaningful. You know, there's things that Connor and I think are really important to talk about, but you guys want to hear about something else. And so we want to make this as responsive to what you're looking for as well, and try to kind of combine a lot of stuff, because if there's something that one person wants to hear, probably somebody else does. And actually, there's somebody on this call that I called them up and I said, hey, what, we have a bunch of topics, but we're looking for a really good week one topic. What do you got, or what would you want to see? And this one was actually suggested. So send us some ideas if you have them. We're all ears. If you have any other feedback too, please let us know if there's any way that we can make this more efficient to you. Connor, I believe, is going to be uploading this to YouTube. And as soon as I get the notification it's on YouTube, I will put it on Facebook in our Cornball Umpires group. And I don't know if Matt's still here or not, but I saw that he requested to join, so I will get him in our Facebook page as well. It's Cornball Umpires Association on Facebook. It's a private group, so one of us will have to let you in, but we'll gladly let you in if you want to get in.
Cool. Have a good week. We'll see you next Wednesday at noon Central.
Thanks a lot.
Sounds good.